Yeah, I totally agree with you on that point, 100%. Um, and I've been thinking about this, like when we get our next wave of people interested in Aavegtochi, where is that going to come from? And I personally think we're going to see a lot of players coming from Axie because we have a few guilds now that are pretty big in Axie, and they've gone kind of headfirst into Aavegotchi. So, like Axie Infinity right now, I think has roughly 2 million daily active users that are playing Axie Infinity. So if we even got 10% of those that were interested, that's
Wait, you said two?
200,000.
You said 2 million?
Yeah, they have 2 million daily active
Wow.
users right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 17,000 gotchis, or and change. I think that the DAO will be scrambling at that point to bring a Haunt 3.
So that brings me to 2 points then. There's probably going to be a big supply shock that will happen when that happens, whenever that happens. And then the second point is Haunt 3. We're going to have to talk about that when the time comes because there might be two camps that form there. One being a smaller haunt that maybe like using the rental ability a lot better or a lot more, and we can justify a smaller haunt, or because we want to attract a lot more. I mean, there's two. Yeah, I guess there's two sides. One group of people saying we want a small haunt, and another group of people saying we have like literally tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of players that are interested. Like we could bring in a lot of capital with that and make like rarity farming events or like other events like even better, right? So like, what's your guys' opinion on that? Like, what camp do you sit in, and kind of what do you think about that?
I mean, it's certainly a good problem to have, but I would probably vote seeing it would depend probably on the stability of the game for me personally at that point, and how stable the servers have been and connectivity and that kind of stuff. And I would have to get a census, and that's why it's like, although that we will be steering and I was making this point in the boost, but people kept kind of like dismissing it, but like we don't have all the data. And like anybody that like works in any profession around tech or, even entrepreneurship, like the data can completely change your perspective on things. So I would want to know where they feel safe scaling to instantly, right? Because if you have that kind of pressure, and I I'm just curious where the Axie number comes from too, because I want to go read about that because that's a big number. And so let's say, like you said, it was like 10% of those Axie players at 200,000. Well, I don't think we're going to get more than 500 to 750 people connecting at once tomorrow, personally. That's how small I think the Aavegotchi community is, at least of the players that are in the know enough to come and get on the stress test. So, yeah, my first thing would be like, hey, what do y'all think based on the servers, based on, the infrastructure? Like, can we handle 50,000 people coming in over a period of 3 weeks? And that's probably what would guide me personally.
That was a very good question. Whoever asked that about the possibility of a Haunt 3 and what side you might go. In my opinion, I think we would have to vote in another Haunt 3 because, like you said, I don't think the community is that big. If there is, let's say, 17,000 gotchis, at first we need to get the lending and renting market very popular. And if that's in high demand, then I guess you would see a Haunt 3. But I don't know. Until then, we're just chilling. I'm excited to see the infrastructure of the lending and renting because I think that's going to be game changing. Because I hear in Axie Infinity, it's a little bit of a bitch to apply for a scholarship, etc. But this should be easy. You can just do it on chain.
Yeah, renting and lending is easy. Like, then that will really determine whether we need a Haunt 3 or not. Because, like, if we can scale through that way and, like, because there's only about 4,000, like, Gotchi holders right now. So if, like, we're able to, like, expand that to the full, like, say, like, say 5,000 people keep their portals closed, so we get up to, like, 20,000 Gotchis. So if we're able to, like, lend up to, if we're reaching max capacity at, like, around 20,000 Gotchis, then, and, like, there's, like, a bunch more people, like, waiting to get more Gotchis, but, like, there's just, like, none on the market, like then that's probably a good determination of we should probably have another on 3 because then there's like that the demand's going to meet the supply that we're entering the market. Otherwise, like you risk like oversupplying the market.
Yeah, from my understanding, Axie Infinity, is there like a unlimited supply of the Axies? I guess you can. I
Yeah,
heard you can
they have
breed
a
in the
breeding
game.
program. Yeah, so
Oh,
you can
okay.
just like get another Axie. I don't know the full like scope of it, but I know it is uh inflationary.
Because I wonder if the
Gotchis are
tokenomics would
deflationary.
work in the long run.
I mean, from Axie's point of view, like you have to harvest like these ERC20 tokens. Like their version of Alchemica would be like the SLP tokens, and then that's what they use for breeding. So like that's like the core tenet of their gameplay is, well, the card game for like harvesting the SLP, and then like using the SLP to breed them. So like for now, I guess they're making it work with the tokenomics, but like their biggest thing is going to be being able to add more value over time to make that SLP and like the axes themselves more useful. Because I think there's like they're in the millions for sure. Like I think there's like over 4 million axes now. So like the player base is there and like there's guilds managing scholarships, but because a lot of this stuff isn't on chain, the guilds have to build a lot of their own programs and their own interfaces for lending and renting, which makes things a little bit clunky because like we've had a few guilds now say how a lot of their like renters get screwed over by by the borrowers who aren't either paying up with the SLP or the transaction just gets botched somehow one way or the other. And so like having everything on chain, like you said, it's going to be huge. Um, and then I think another thing about being on chain is having access to on-chain metrics. And I think if we can look at the utilization rate of the rented out Aavegtochis, and if that utilization rate's like, like in the 90s or whatever, then we got to look at how much demand we're actually going to see. Because like that would be a great opportunity to like grow the game as well.
Yeah, I wonder what the like the amount of people coming in will do to like the emission rates of Alchemica. Like it's really interesting to think about like if people don't actually, play, the Alchemica stays in the ground. So like it should be like it should respond to like a lot of people coming into the game, and like I think that's all going to be really interesting to experience. Like really, because I'm not sure how many games are out there in the PDE space right now. I don't know if anybody can speak to this, but that actually allow you to farm and yield from your land in with the token, in-game token that is then used to craft. I'm not sure if Aavegtochi is going to beat a PDE first with that, but I find that like really interesting, right? And I mean, imagine like 10,000 players coming in over like the course of a month, right? Where like, and the player base being like, a couple thousand consistent players, it could have a really, really like interesting impact on the economy in the short and long term. And I'm thinking these are the kind of problems they're sitting around thinking about, after work when they get a beer and stuff, because it's going to be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be a big point in the game where a lot of growth can happen, or like if things get really messy, if people aren't on the same page with like there's going to be a Haunt 3. Like there's going to be in the game overall over many, many years, there's going to be 420,069 parcels that are going to be released over a long, long period of time through probably like many sales. So like that should just give you an idea of where they want the scale to go. But like obviously that's going to require a lot more gotchis and a lot more avenues to like rent gotchis and also the liquidator gameplay as well for that to all work.
Yeah, that's a great point on the total parcel count. I think after these two and with the giveaways and everything, we're like at like 25,000 or between 20 and 25,000, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, we haven't seen nothing yet. So it's going to be a lot, really expansive game. And I think that what will also determine the need for a Hunt 3 is how well they nail not only the actual interface for, browsing gotchis that you want to rent, and or the interface that, you know, manages you renting your gotchis, but also probably some sort of reputation system, or at least some transparency in regards to how the player that rented your gotchi performed. And that'll be really interesting, because if they nail that, then I think that'll create an even stronger, you know, lending market, will allow a, you know, good renter and a good player to find each other, and kind of like, you know, weed out the people that are just here to mess around.
Oh, that's very true. Maybe have like a dashboard showing how long they played within, how much alchemica they earned, and maybe the ratio, how it was split. That would be very cool from the renter's perspective.
Yeah, I think some people are just like gonna like, I think this game, I mean, like, look, even just from what we've seen with that little demo of like collecting the alchemica, like some people will be better than others. Some people are just better at games than others. So like seeing how, what premium those people command, like in terms of the rental market, and or like how many, like at what point does somebody that's like really good like that like stop like even needing to rent, and like how is that person replaced? Like it's funny things to think about, because it's like, well, you know, like all things in life, if you're really really good at something, like, and the opportunity is there and it's equitable in some respect, like, you know, people might like rise up from like just, you know, having nothing to being a badass gotchi player, and like having everybody like, no, 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 like here, play with my gotchi, to eventually making so much money that they have their own gotchi and their own gotchi army. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you just put it in perspective so well. I see it as maybe like the latter being, first you start off renting a gotchi, you earn enough alchemica to buy a humble piece of land, and then from there, maybe you keep buying more land if you earn more alchemica, but at, at the same time, you're still renting the gotchi. And I don't know what the floor price of a gotchi is going to be, because honestly, it's pretty expensive right now. It's probably like $1,400. So with the humble parcel and a gotchi, you're almost spending like $1,600, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like it's the numbers are interesting, but it's been surreal to me personally to like have an NFT that's like yielding money back to me, like, and not just by like somebody else wanting to buy it, because that's happening with like the gotchis and the wearables and the land anyways, but just from like the rarity farming and like yielding like from friends and all that, like I don't have an NFT that yields me back money right now, right? And I think that, yeah, gotchis might even be undervalued, even at the price that they're at right now, especially if they nail the rental market, where it's going to be really this thing. Because like there's a certain like coolness to being able to switch gotchis, like in it, especially if the gameplay, they nail it, where like gotchis are really diverse and different. Like, you know, even people that have like, you know, 10, 15, 20, 30 gotchis might go rent a gotchi for a specific task or gameplay style, or, you know, I don't know, right? Like, because even if you're a whale and you have tons of gotchis, you don't have every gotchi, right? And you certainly don't have every wearable. So I think that they should really think deeply about that, because these constraints are actually creating like something interesting where, you know, nobody can really have everything, but anybody can easily go and borrow something. And I think that's cool. Like, yeah, I just thought about that for the first time. That's pretty interesting.
That is a good point. I mean, I've thought about a few of my gotchis that they they're not like super rare or anything, but they do really well in a lot of the mini games. So I feel like that will translate a lot better into like battle gotchis, for example. They're like fast, you know, like one has like mythical energy and it has a bunch of like other balanced stats. But like its BRS is only like a 493 or something like that. And it's probably one of my best gotchis to play with.
Yeah, and right, and like if there's a lot of players, those types of gotchis might be higher in demand, so they might be scarcer than we even understand, and might be necessary to go rent no matter what. And certain gotchis may have demand pressure, um, based on like things that happen in the realm, like even new experiences or mini games within the realm might like have like a bunch of people scrambling on the rental market for this type of gotchi or that type of gotchi. So yeah, like the interface that they make, they refer to it as like an Uber experience, right? So I think that they're caring a lot about the UI UX when it comes to lending and renting and borrowing and all that. So I'm really bullish just meditating on that right now because, I mean, even for the guilds, I think some of these guilds might be missing it too. Hopefully they have some good, experienced Gotchi people. And what does that mean, right? Gotchi's only been around for like a little bit over a year, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And so, picking, like, you may want to join a guild because and you may want to pay like a guild membership because that guild has well-picked gotchis and you may get priority on those gotchis by being part of that guild.
Ooh, that's a good point. That's like some extra incentive to like join a certain guild over another one. Is like you look at their gotchi inventory and you're like, all right, I don't own any gotchis, but owning some access to this guild will give me access to like a lot of these gotchis that are going to do really well for certain types of gameplay. And like going back to the cost of it, I think once we know like the value of Alchemica and how much like on a monthly basis or weekly basis, someone being a dedicated Aavegtochi player can earn, yeah, in that period of time, we'll be able to put a better value on the pricing of an Aavegtochi as like an actual like yield producing thing, where it's like actually making money, and so you can price that into the cost. So like, let's say, I mean, I'll just throw some random numbers out there. I'm not really like this is not advice by any means, but let's say your Aavegotchi earns you like $300 a month or $400 a month, and you're like a dedicated player, and you're able to sell that Alchemica off and make that money. And the initial buy-in is like $1,600. You'll make your money back in like what, like 4 months or something like that, right? So
Yeah, I mean, payback periods can get really interesting. And then like, I think the greater point is that there's a big variable, like what's going on in the realm. Like, and that's crazy, like to really think about, like, because right now, at least they're like, hey, you guys can build on your land, right? You can build these experiences and, we're going to be going and getting a partner parcel. The partner parcels are all zipped up for the Citadel. So I'm hoping that we can be one of the first outside in the grid. But it's like you can really kind of like steer demand towards your gotchis, just like you can steer demand towards wearables, like with Aavegtochi, right? I mean, the game probably did not affect the market because there's just not enough people. But in Aavegtochi, if you had a spacesuit, regardless of your energy, you had health. And, creating an experience in your partner parcel or in your personal parcel that in some way can have like a feedback loop with like making money and having a certain gotchi excels at that is a very dynamic thing that can create all sorts of weird demand for gotchis at different points in time. And that's pretty mind-blowing. And I think that it must have really clicked for somebody on their team, like with this whole rental proposition. It's probably, to me, the most bullish, the thing that's got me most bullish about Aavegtochi, and today just reinforced it further for me. But that is really interesting to think about because, yeah, like for sure, I'm convinced now. I mean, plenty of people did get this, and plenty of people are shopping the stack gotchis, but I don't think enough. Like, I don't think some of these big guilds, DAOs rather, like that are coming from other games, really understand all the mechanics and like the nuances and like in gotchi selection and stats. It took me a couple months, 3 months of doing it all the time. I'm sure everybody here can vouch for that too, that it took them a while to really like digest how to pick a good gotchi.
And
And
we
like,
still don't fully know. I mean, it will like translate 1-to-1 to the realm. Like it's still like evolving. Like we also think we know we have like a meta for like rarity farming and like how to move up on that ranks, but like how it's going to affect us in like you said, in like one game versus another game, it might be completely different. It might create demand at like different times, so it's going to just continue to evolve. So we honestly, like at this point, we can think we know but like we honestly don't know as much as like just the market will determine like naturally later on.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. We got Gotchi God here. Hey man, how's it going? Or yeah, hey, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. Really happy to hang out with the gang.
Yeah, it's nice to see a new face in here. Um, we had a recent raffle, Aavegtochi raffle. I was actually going to ask you guys how did you guys do on that?
I just submitted 4 tickets. Didn't get any hits.
So I actually had crazy luck. I submitted 200 tickets and ended up with 13 parcels, 8 of which were spacious. So it was like, yeah, I mean, it was much better than any of the other raffle experiences that I've had. Usually, like most of the time, I think the ticket option or selling tickets was better for me, but this was like out of control. And I'm actually not sure what I'm going to do with the parcels now. Like, I think that like if we really believe in what's going on with Aavegtochi and we're really that bullish, like parcel prices are just a steal right now, even where they're at. You know, considering everything we've been talking about in here and potentially the demand and some of the comps in Axie, which it's funny, I was talking to an Axie player the other day. So in real life, in one of my startups, like we do crypto related stuff and we have a bunch of different, you know, we do a lot of B2B stuff and we have all these different clients. And one of them is just like, oh, I'm done. I don't need you guys anymore because like I've been making, you know, 20, 30 grand a month playing Axie and doing scholarships. So I went down like the rabbit hole, you know, with him about, you know, kind of like the whole Axie situation. And to me, it seems like Axie's trying to copy Aavegtochi's land thing because he's kind of talking to me about the Axie land in response to how I'm explaining to him how the realm and, you know, we just had this, you know, these auctions and, you know, was, you know, the Citadel and this and that. And he's like, oh, yeah, we have something like that in Axie, but like, I'm not really sure what it does. So it seems like, you know, they're actually maybe chasing Aavegtochi a bit on that. So I'm sure we can see some innovation out of them with smart contracts, but they had a piece of land go for like, I think it was like a couple mil the other day. You know, I mean, and there's nothing even close, even in the auctions, even with the fully, you know, kecked out spacious parcels, you know, those were, I think the high went for like 43,000 ghosts in the first auction, which ghost was around $2 then. So you're talking about 80 grand. You know, I mean, even for that parcel to go to a couple million, you're talking about a big multiple. So I'm actually might just keep the land is what I'm thinking.
You know, I wonder if a lot of those bids came from the Axie landholders selling off some of their pieces of land and then coming into Aavegtochi and attributing similar values to our land. Do you know what I mean? Like coming into our
It was
auction.
around the same time, to be honest. Like it was like within like days of each other of the auction happening and all that. So maybe.
Yeah, that'd be interesting because I mean, if they sold even a parcel in Axie Infinity for 100,000 or, you know, 20, 30, 40,000, um, that's a lot of money in Aavegtochi world, in Gotchiverse world, because you could get a decent amount of parcels for that compared to Axie, which is like it's the land's priced a lot of people out, but then we don't like there's no details out on their land play yet. So who knows if they're gonna like pull a Microsoft and just wait till we come out with our full gameplay and then cherry pick whatever features they want, because I haven't heard too much about their development.
Yeah, I don't follow Axie closely, but I think that at this point the games will all start borrowing from each other, at least what's successful. They have a huge hole, and that's why I think that like coming out in Q1 and going strong with the deployment of the realm will be really big for Aavegtochi because like that whole thing and even talking to him and him showing me the tools that he uses to manage his scholars and this and that and blah, 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 if that can really be simplified and, you know, distilled like down to just like a good UI that helps you manage and scales out to hundreds of gotchis, I think we're going to black hole suck money out of Axie Infinity. Like 100%. And all I hear about that game is how it's boring and it's a grind. So My understanding is that I think they can produce $15 to $20 a day in revenue playing per scholar. So if Aavegtochi's anywhere around that, I think we're going to be really well. Everybody here is going to do really, really well. That's my 2 cents. Obviously not financial advice, but the valuations just don't match up. Now, I will say, Hefe, when you told me 2 million, daily active users, I was like, whoa, that's a big number, like, period. Like, if Aavegtochi gets that, like, without, like, even worrying about what the price is, I mean, it would just explode, right? There's no way. So that kind of scares me as much as it excites me.
Yeah, it's crazy how much has gone into that space. And they were talking about it on this podcast this morning about how many Axie players have started playing the game, not out of like just fun, but because of necessity. And because where they were in the world, it was providing them with a living wage. So I could see that happening with us too, where even, with the game starting out, it'll be able to support or help people in those countries.
I think so. So what keeps me up at night lately is like, oh God, will I have enough like friends to play on launch, right? Because I think it's going to be a mad dash in the beginning. I've heard some rumors about like how there won't be walls and there'll be a lot of like spillover. And so it's like there's probably nothing worse than having like an army of gotchis with no one to play them, especially like if the beginning of the game is going to be this like kind of like golden time, especially the first 30 days or whatever, where everybody's stuff spilling over and spilling out everywhere. Some serious money probably could be lost if you have inactive gotchis. So I think that's going to be really interesting.
Oh, that is a really good point. I mean, I think communal channeling will be a big deal at the start as well. And actually, this is a good time to bring up this snapshot proposal that I've been looking at. That's in our, it's one of the proposals that just popped up in our DAO snapshot. And someone has written up a really thorough proposal for adding custom guild insignias, like NFT insignias, in addition to the existing wearables for communal channeling. So what do you guys think about that? I'll actually give a couple more details. So I guess the goals here are to give free access to communal channeling for guild members, and you wouldn't require a wearable to participate, and then also remove the impact of the guild wearable on the Gotchi BRS. So just to like maybe be able to possess the wearable, not necessarily have to like equip it per se.
I have not like done my homework on this. I saw some of the back and forth in the DAO a little while ago. It was getting kind of, whatever. It doesn't need to go there. Seems certain people want to take it there. But that being said, my thing would be like, maybe you can explain to me, Hefe, like, what do we know for sure about communal channeling? And I saw some people posting about that. And I remember reading about it, I think it was in the beginning of the month of December. But maybe you can speak to that to help me understand better. When you say that you need a guild insignia to communal channel with the guild, is that independent of an item, or is there something in text from Pixelcraft that says like, hey, you will need the guild's item to communal channel? I guess that's where I'm a bit fuzzy.
Okay, yeah. So with communal channeling, I mean, there are multiple ways to like earn Alchemica, and so you would channel with your guild on a parcel, but you would need to have this Gotchi Lodge installation built first. So this Gotchi Lodge installation would essentially enable this to be able to happen. You build that, and then you need to have the appropriate wearable, which I'm assuming is somehow attached to the guild lodge. And so then you would have to have your Aavegtochi show up with this wearable. Either, I'm guessing right now it's equipped, but maybe perhaps it could be just like in the pocket. And that would enable you to essentially do this channeling ceremony together where you would be rewarded ERC20, like the Alchemica tokens from thin air, basically. So these are not coming from your parcel. These are literally coming from a different allocation of Alchemica.
Yeah, I get that, but I guess what I'm not getting is, and I don't think, and it seems like kind of like I heard you use like the word assume, because like I don't think that have they been clear on like, oh, you have to have you have this installation, you have to associate an item to it, and in order to do the communal channeling, people have to also have this item. Like, is that in writing? Because if it's not, then like, what are we talking? You know what I mean? Like, the proposal from the other side, I guess, would even seem premature. I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, I guess it's based off of a recent Medium article that just was, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago that this Medium article was released. And it says here, communal channeling, on the other hand, allows Aavegtochis to work together with their friends when a Gotchi Lodge installation has been built on the parcel. And then in order to participate in communal channeling, each Aavegtochi must wear the associated insignia wearable and be
Okay.
present on the land parcel during
Yeah,
the ritual.
nowhere there does it say anything about having to have like an item. They sounds like they're gonna have a class of item called a guild insignia, like something like a guild tabard in WoW, where you just like probably pay some ghost and register this like item as like a tabard or like a T-shirt that your guildies can wear, and you probably associate that to it. Now, like the
I mean,
fact that
that's one
everybody's
interpretation. What they've said is that, and why like the portal mages was created was because that they originally said it, and that this was their intention, and they wrote in the Medium article that they want it to be the one of the wearables that's the insignia and build community around like the wearables that they're creating internally. I feel like if you're outsourcing the ability to create the insignia, I mean, they could create an in-game thing where it's an insignia and that's internally. If it's more of like each clan is created, each guild is creating their own insignia, and say like one person has like 1,000 gotchis and they just cheaply print like all those insignia, then they get up to max capacity for channeling real quick, and they can just like rent those if they have like the people to rent that out to. Then they're kind of siphoning out value from the entire ecosystem, which cheapens Alchemica like entirely, and also
that
like
makes sense.
and also takes away from like the only utility that we know for sure that these wearables are going to have, which is why people have been creating like the Portal Mage Guild, the Friend Zone Guild, the Wagme Warrior Guild, Los Mustachios Guild around these wearables, because that's what that's been their intention the whole time.
That makes a lot more sense now, and that's a pretty like important piece of info. They should probably give some clarity on that. Especially for like people that have been buying wearables. Like I've just been buying every wearable because like I just want to be in everyone's guild and just like be friends with everyone and just learn what everyone's doing. But I think that obviously that presents issues mainly, unfortunately, because there's just the supply of like wearables is off right now. But that's no big deal because they can just make as many wearables as they need to, depending on how many people are in the game. But yeah, they should probably clarify that because
Yeah, there's
again,
a lot of
like,
things that need to be
this is like a boosted
clarified.
boost. This is like a boost situation, right? We don't want that to happen again. So they could just like say, hey, this is what we want, and this is what we're doing, and then we can all react accordingly. But yeah, this is like a kind of like a boost. Like we're stuck in like a recursive loop right now. With this, not a good one, right? But I mean, I wouldn't care either way. I think it's cool, and I think that's a cool way to put demand on wearables. But I could see that being a problem depending on how they want wearables to interact in the game in terms of utility for the player. But again, I never actually did the math. I know for sure though, without even doing the math, that there's way not enough wearables, right? Because it's like 7 slots of Gotchi,
Right,
17,000 Gotchis. Like, there's definitely not enough. So
they could
I
always
saved a
have
lot of my money
more
for what's
future
coming.
wearable drops too. Like they could just
For
have
sure.
it do that like infinitely, if they wanted to.
Yeah, I think so. And like, certain wearables would just command different amounts. It wouldn't necessarily be like hyperinflationary on like the whole environment because, whatever, some people would just want the classics. Some people would want this wearable because they want to get in that guild or this guild. But yeah, my vote is that they just really just clarify it so that the community doesn't have to like fall down this interpretation trap where like they end up fighting each other and people getting uncivil.
Yeah. I think that the Farmy have been like they have like their little insignia. They've been like, mainly wanting to push this forward. and like there's literally a farming like wearable, like there's a whole outfit made for your guild. Like just take that. Like it doesn't have to be like that complicated. It also like allows people to put like investment into it, and it makes it a little bit of a higher thing to achieve within like a greater game ecosystem that shouldn't be so cheaply like given out if we want to create value in the alchemicas. Kind of
Yeah, the only thing with that too is like scaling in terms of like guild members, like that could be an issue, right? But maybe they could like switch to more like combos, like a combination of items, that would give us a whole nother like layer.
It could be like scaling like the amount of alchemica that you're able to channel with the different ones. So say you just have like a common insignia one that may channel a little bit less than saying having a like a whole portal mage outfit.
Yeah, they get another exponent if like guilds could be like, oh, you need this and that, and then that creates like a whole nother,
It just needs to be everything needs to be clarified in a white paper. That's kind of my main point.
I agree.
I mean, there's a lot of like, we can throw around as much speculation as we want at the end of the day, but until we have like a white paper, it's hard to really like say for sure versus what they've said, and then some people trying to change some things. So
I think it's funny. I saw people going back and forth where they were like voting, using the same arguments that they used against the boost against like this whole thing, and I found that ironic, and it's just like, well, that's how
it's funny how quickly you came full circle on that one already. Eh? Nice to join you guys up here. I was pretty vocal in the DAO chat today, so I felt like
welcome, bro.
To hop on. Hefe, I love your spaces, by the way. I love tuning in. Thanks for hosting.
Thanks, man.
But yeah, like I think all we know right now, we know a few ways. Like they basically just released a Medium article how we are going to be earning actually in like the Gotchiverse, and it seems pretty simple to me. Like I posted a little guide in the DAO discussion day, but I'll just quickly read it over. So in order to farm Alchemica, you're going to need to invest in land and an Alchemica harvester. So you may want to even pay GHST off the hop to get the head start on that harvester, but you're still going to need an investment, and you already made an investment in land and the harvester. So, and then exploring, you're going to be able to pick up Alchemica in the realm, but you need a Gotchi to do that, or you need to rent. So that's also a capital investment. Alchemical channeling is earning based on your kinship, so you're basically getting a reward for the activity you've put into the game. You also need Gotchis to tap into that reward too, because you're not going to Alchemica channel with Liquidator. You need a Gotchi to source that ROI, or that Alchemica revenue, or whatever you want to call it. But then we get to communal channeling, and you need wearables, or you need to rent a Gotchi that's wearing them. So I heard you guys talking about cool ways that renting might drive, like there might be ways to drive demand for rent. I always thought that the wearables, the need to communal channel would drive that demand. Someone would rent a Gotchi with a specific wearable to go hang out and communal channel with it or whatever. But I just don't understand how in all these other elements of the game, you need to make an investment into it. But the communal channeling is just going to be an open-ended, free entry, basically an infinite ROI, because there's no initial investment there. You can just get you can mint yourself your own guild insignia off OpenSea, and now you're going to be channeling Alchemica from it. So I just think it's potentially, like, I think there's a lot of ripple effects coming from this proposal, and I don't think it's fully thought out. I think I'm not really against a Gotchi, like an emblem on your Gotchi lodge of whatever you want to do. Like if Blackpool wants on all their Gotchi lodges like a Blackpool logo or something, like that's cool. But as far as getting a yield from it, I don't feel like that should. I feel like that should be come from the catalog of wearables that we already have, and that's like the plan that they have. And it's just like it just sucks because I feel like they've worked really hard to get the game to where it is, and we're not even giving it a chance. Like we're just thinking we can create a better game before we even have solid details. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. But I mean, I'll be hanging out for a bit up here. So
I think that that's a really. See, I didn't think of it, and you articulated well. I didn't think about this like from a gating perspective, like in terms of like limiting channeling, and that really, I get that, right? Because I did not think of that, side of like, oh well, somebody would just whip up their own thing, right? Obviously, they can apply a cost to like the guild insignia, like or whatever item they would make that would be like the guild tab art or whatever. But yeah, like that makes a lot more sense from a gating perspective. Like channeling is supposed to be like this special thing, like when you do it communally. So, let's make it, and it also drives incentive for people to join guilds, and it actually becomes like this like world event in a way, which is like was a really cool part of like MMORPGs, right? Where you have like these world events where like, well, if you're a part of like all these different like guilds through wearables, like, and they're doing their communal channeling, it's like a reason for people to get together in the game space, which is really cool, I think, and another great point about that.
Yeah, exactly. And like how you said, you basically buying every wearable because you just want to make friends with everyone and join all the guilds. I also invested as much as I possibly could on acquiring as many wearables. I kind of went from the top down and just wanted to grab all the ones I could attain in order so that whenever there was a guild in the future, I at least have one of that wearable. I can go channel with him, or one of my Gotchis can go use that wearable. And we can rotate through Gotchis and channel and whatnot. But the other thing with alchemical channeling, or with communal channeling, is that the more Gotchis there are in one place, the higher the yield is going to be. So we already have these natural limiting factors with wearables, and so they kind of, it's going to be a fight for that communal channeling. You're going to have to find active players who have your thing. It's like, but this way, it's basically a big gaming DAO. Essentially, you could just have their 1,000 naked Gotchis at all times, max channeling, and that's just going to dilute the yield of anyone. So for me, it's not even going to be the right capital, or the right, it might not be capital efficient for me to alchemical channel with my own guild, or a communal channel with my own guild, if I can go be a naked Gotchi 10 lodges down and absorb all that yield, like, because there may only be 10 of us wearing the same wearable, but there's going to be 100 Gotchis wearing some OpenSea NFT. So there's no competition at that point. It just completely basically makes the wearables obsolete for alchemical channeling with your or communal channeling, I should say. Sorry, I keep getting both mixed up, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because like I think that they were pretty specific that the UBI aspect of it was like the individual channeling of your Gotchi, not the communal aspect of it. So like they could definitely, like, it's not like there isn't a UBI, right? Because like you can channel like you're by yourself, but the communal aspect of it, I did not think of it, and you guys clarified like that whole wearable aspect for me. And I feel kind of dumb because it makes a lot of sense now with all the wearable guilds. I always wondered, people are like, oh, what's going to be your like wearable for your guild? I was like, no, I don't think we're going to do one, because I just didn't understand the mechanic, or at least how it was intended. So that was pretty clarifying.
Yeah, now like they have as of December 1st, it's been in writing that this was their plan, and there's been people after that have invested in wearables specifically to channel with the guild. So now we're just running in circles with the retroactive changes stuff, which, it seems like a lot of people that were very against the retroactive change in 1C, which the devs actually pushed forward, saying there might be, a flaw in the game, or that they didn't intend to be there, so it's whatever. But now we're just a week later, we're gonna completely retroactively change the utility of a wearable, and it's just no issue at all. So, and that's what the vote is right now, and I just really hope it doesn't reach quorum. And I think that
so I'm gonna abstain from voting on that, because like I'll speak to your greater point, and I think that, and I've said it here, and it's not anti-DAO, it's not anti-decentralization, it's not anti like the ethos of all this. No one can tell me that. I'm a hardcore Bitcoiner before I was any of this kind of stuff, so I come from that. Like I was born in that, right? This is a game. And they had a game that they designed, and it is not launched yet. And they see the data, they have the vision, they see the math, they're doing the math, they see the long-term, like, what's 420,000 parcels going to look like? And everybody in here in the last week or two is like, no, the game should be like this. And if you just defer over to the game designers, then, you're anti-DAO. And that's ridiculous. And I'm just going to call out everybody that said that. It's a poor argument. And I think we should let these people launch the game. I don't care. I bought boosted parcels. I bought non-boosted parcels. I bought wearables of all types. I take all the risk of the game changing at any point in time, because when I signed up for this, I was not trying to change the game before it launched. I wanted to have a say in the game when it was launched with my buy-in. And on top of everything, I'll never speak about the boosted again. The fact that vote was rocked the way it was without people getting their actual vote power for the money that they spent on the auctions, on the actual parcels that they purchased, and none of that being attributed to the vote, I thought that was nuts and kind of broke that whole thing. But I agree with you, bros. And like, I'm going to leave it at that. Like I have full faith in the game designers. That's why I invested in this game.
Yeah, exactly. Like they seem like the best team to get behind. Like they haven't really messed up yet. From what, like, I've been here as long like as I could possibly be, and I just love what they've done with the game. So it's I'm looking forward to the ride. But there's obviously going to be some bumps in the road with certain DAO votes. and it's fun. It's fun, like, you know, being in the discussion stuff. I do think, like you said, Yen, like, not everything needs to be like up to us. Like you know, like we're DAO, but like we should still give them some control over their own game. I think they have a good idea. Like you said, there's data, there's a bunch of things that go on behind the scenes. So like I just think all these proposals just potentially take the game out of equilibrium before we've even like stepped foot in the Gotchiverse. So
the thing is, we know DAOs too are not the best for necessarily making like micro decisions. Like they get, you know, they're not completely Sybil resisted. You know, there is astroturfing from like an information perspective. You know what I mean? There's sometimes like there's people willing to go to all lengths to win and get their point across, right? And I don't want to see this game manipulated before it even starts. You know, from like, you know, the community being here saying like, oh, this is how it should be. Right. And like, I don't get that at all. I didn't get that with the boosted boost. I was willing to take either one. And I don't get why anyone is even, I don't get what they're doing with the kinship either. I'm confused about that. And I was fine the way and their intentions were, you know, throughout this process. Everybody has been really cool in the community. And I think everybody like sees the same thing that I do, which is like these big brain decisions. Like you said, bros, like they have not really messed up hard. And I thought it was like such a like honest, straight up thing for them to come and be like, hey, we messed up the math and like we messed up how we convey the information about boosted parcels. Like it takes like real people to admit when they're wrong. And then everybody is just like, no. We think that you're right about these two things, but you know, that other thing, forget about it. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just trying to bail people out. And that to me was like so silly. And I do feel a little bit of that happening again because I mean, this weekend, you know, like I'm going to end up in a divorce soon if I don't get away from the Discord server. But, you know, like the reality is that when I did pop in today, all I see is like the same kind of thing. Like people just like, you know, completely flaming people that are just trying to make a reasonable argument and just having a discussion, be like, no. Like, you're wrong. And like, I'm just going to DDoS this chat now until I bury everything that you've said and nobody can come. And then I'm going to complain when you bring it up the next day, even though there's brand new people hearing this information for the next time. Oh, and by the way, we should close the vote in 2 days because everybody's already seen it. Come on, you know, come on.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with what you were saying and putting trust in the devs and that they have only ever shipped pure gold. That like even this math error, I mean, we're talking about something that never got even implemented. You know, it's just like a prospective decision that didn't actually follow through, and they found it themselves. Explained it awfully well, I think, in the snapshot and all of this. But then about the DAO activity, I actually had the first ERL proper conversation about a snapshot vote because of that. So I have a few friends, and then the kind of whole batch of these December votes that came in, core props and then these side props, it was like there was so much content, and I think there was a lot of like quite strong arguments for and against a few of them, and that's for the first time, at least for the time that I've been a part of the community, and that I had to talk it over with somebody else who is also a Gotchi, you know. So it was like actually not all bad that the DAO was pushed a little bit. This was the first instance that I saw that there was real disagreements, and I mean, I think it's healthy that this was over something that is kind of theoretical, and we all have like our profit margins and our investments, but like now these decisions, whether they're going to fall over to one or the other end, we're going to break the bank, you know. So we were still like committed to doing right by him, but it wasn't like catastrophic. So yeah, we'll be better at making future decisions after a little qualm like this. I think it's really good stuff after all.
And I think if there's one thing that came out of some of this is the communication around these proposals is really important. Even if it's something like this with wearables, right? Like I see that someone's created a proposal, but I don't feel like there was a real conversation around it. Like we haven't really talked about it in Hangouts. I think this was in the forums for a while, but there was like mixed conversation around that. So sometimes people are, I feel, leapfrogging the DAO process.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
and just shoving a proposal in there, and then it's getting a bunch of support, but there was like no real conversation around it, and it's just
Yeah.
people.
On that note, sorry, I'm going to jump on it right
Go
away.
ahead, go ahead.
I totally think that the leapfrogging is real, and that the fact that anybody and everybody can, you know, pick up on these ideas and then put them to vote is like unfair. But then I wish Snapshot had like a feature where one of the votes could be like instead of voting absentee, you would like want to veto, or not veto, but like you'd want to make the vote void, that you don't believe that it actually has like currency as a proposal.
That's
No?
actually a great point, and that's a mistake I made. And what you do with that is you just don't vote because it won't get quorum. And that's kind of the way that you veto or void a vote, in my opinion. Because sometimes, like, I was rushing through too quickly through things, and like I'll vote no or I'll vote yes, and I'm like, in reality, I don't even think this proposal should exist. You know, it doesn't make any sense. Now they are sig props, right? So it's like it's not like this is going to pass into the game. You know, then they go into core, and you know we have another shot at it. But yeah, make sure that you understand that, because that was a mistake that I was making. And you know, I have some decent voting power, and many times, like, probably the better move from how I was feeling was make sure that I could try to block it from getting to quorum, because I didn't feel that like it was should even be voted on. But what I think a lot is happening is that this information, the pipeline's coming so quickly. First, they threw out all those sig props. Now more people are like, they got us into this motion of voting, right? So then someone's now snuck another one in, like, and everyone's just like in a voting tizzy, probably even disassociating like the whole like, oh, am I going to get experience or not, right? And that's like what's kind of been annoying me too, is like, let's slow down for a second. There's a lot of new players. There's a lot of new people. And that whole sig prop thing, like the when the little kind of factions, right? Because I still think that we're all one big community, and like we're sometimes, I think in these last couple of weeks, people aren't looking far enough. Like they're thinking like almost like not like for like the long term of the game in a way. But what is end up happening is that you cannot digest that information. One, if you're new, even if you've been here, you cannot digest it. And then you have all these people just going at it in the DAO, and it was a lot of really good information for everybody. But can that really be digested by the community and all the different people in the community in a matter of like a couple days? A fundamentally huge decision for game design that's going to affect everybody for the next 2 years of the game. And like that's what was like, look, this should not have been asked of us. If they felt that the boosts were messed up, it would have been like, hey, we're going to fix the boost. Should it be this amount, or this amount? Not like, oh, should we fix the boost or not? And so, you know, I'm glad that we're getting closer to launch, because I'd like to just get this out and pushed out so people can stop sitting around and trying to tinker and like doodling their thumbs, like, because they don't have game to play, and being like, oh, what should we change? Maybe it should be this way. Maybe it should be that way. And a very unsuspecting community that's not ready to digest all this information, but does have voting power, right? So I think that, you know, it's an uneasy situation, but I think we'll be fine. But I usually, even as much as like I take the time to study the game, I usually default to what Jesse and Dan think, because this game has not been launched, and it's their invention. And, you know, for many other reasons that I've made in the DAO discussion about not having data and this and this and that. But, you know, guys, once we launch the game and we have something that's really good and works, right, I would even give them the freedom and the liberty to make it within the first 6 months of the game to make very centralized decisions, because they may have to save the game, you know? And that's where I'm like, if the DAO gets in the way of the game designer's intention of saving the game because they see what's coming, because they see it from a whole different perspective than anybody does, what are we doing getting in their way? I don't get that, right? Now, 6 months, we have a stable game. We want to, you know, do more of this, do more of that. I get it. Let's do it. Like, the game's stable. We know that if we have more to lose by changing, right? It's kind of how cryptocurrency blockchains kind of ossify a bit, right? Like, you have a lot to lose at that point. So I think people will think differently, and they won't be so harsh. And we will maybe even be more respectful, because we all have even more to lose because it's working and it's in motion. So just some things to think about.
And also, I think the network effects are going to be there. Like, you know, with these channeling events and just with the Gotchiverse opening up, there being this alchemica everywhere, there's going to be a lot of interaction in like the metaverse world for once, which is going to be like really new and like exciting for a lot of us, like for me especially. And I think that's gonna, a lot of people, like you said, are probably not going to be focused on the little minutia of things when they're like busy playing the game, and it's like all working out for them. And then there's like other things that might come up with sub DAOs eventually, with like individual districts and whatnot. That's going to be like its own like sub governance, I guess. And so that'll take a lot of pressure off. And I think as things get more decentralized, we'll see less of these kind of one way or the other way kind of decisions happening.
Yeah, I actually just thought of something about how like some replayability effect like this game could have with the wearables. So imagine like a new player coming in, maybe not having the funds to buy a Gotchi, so that they would rent a Gotchi off the start, and maybe that Gotchi has wearables or whatever. But then over time, they would earn enough ghosts to buy their own Gotchi, and then they wouldn't have land at that point, so they'd be limited to running around and picking up alchemica and whatnot. And then they might spend first their earned ghost on a piece of land to then tap into a different yield, right? Now they can start earning yield off of their own parcel. And then once they start earning yield off their own parcel, they might go into the bazaar and start buying wearables because they want to tap into the communal channeling yield, right? So I just feel like it's almost like leveling up within the game, as a newcomer could come in and almost start from the bottom and work their way up through the system we have in place. So I just think it takes away like an aspect of the game. Like I know we're kind of off that topic now, but I just had that thought.
Well, no, yeah, like no, honestly, going back to that topic, because that was a pretty good point that you brought up, is the wearables, especially the common wearables. The reason why the floor has risen on a lot of them is for this reason, that there's going to be guilds and a utility for guilds around that. So, like, I wouldn't want that scene going away, especially for something in the game that has like 1,000 pieces. Like, that's relatively a large amount of liquidity at this point in the game. Like, when we have tens of thousands or eventually hundreds of thousands of playable characters or whatever, like way, way down the line, just thinking long term, maybe this 1,000 count of one kind of wearable won't matter as much. But like early on in the game, I think that's a big deal, and that'll really mess with the market prices of wearables too.
Yeah, and people, like, we still don't know how many Gotchis are even going to be allowed in a Gotchi lodge. Like, that might be in the white paper that X amount of Gotchis, like 100 Gotchis max, can fit inside one of these installations. That's where you're going to be doing the communal channeling. So people are so worried that there's not enough of these wearables, when I don't think over 1,000 Gotchis are going to be inside a lodge, communal channeling together. So I just don't see the issue with that. I see there's going to be unlimited, like an argument was that wearables are finite, but they're not. They're infinite. Like, we're going to have unlimited wearable drops. It's always going to bring more value into our game. It's like a raise for our game for player rewards.
I think it's even okay for like, well, I guess that would be interesting, right? But like, I kind of see the wearables like in this function as like, have you ever seen like that emoji ID system where it's like you like, you pick 3 emojis and that's like your ID? Like, it could scale like that. So like, maybe they just allow, like, I know you guys are kind of going for like, many different wearables for the Portal Mage, but maybe they like allow each guild to like sync down one wearable that it becomes like the required one, right? But so in combinations, like there could be infinite, right? Like you may, and then for another guild, like it could just be like, okay, it's like these 2 items, and then one of those items is also something that's used for your guild, but it's the specific combination of those 2 items that satisfies the condition. And then like that, it could probably scale pretty nicely, I think. Because then like it'd be cool. You'd have like certain communal sets like that you just like swapped out, and you just kind of do your rounds. Like I think I like it from like a social aspect. I think that's really cool. Because then it forces you to like join other guilds and talk to people and stuff like that. So there's definitely some benefit there.
I was really looking forward to, communal channeling with the mages, and then, maybe putting on my anonymous mask and going down to that guild's lodge and seeing if anyone there isn't on communal channel cooldown, because I'm assuming you can only do this maybe once every 6 hours or 12 hours. You're going to be able to do this channeling event. Like we still don't know anything, so we're just speculating. But
Yeah, that's a good point though. If there's a cooldown, like even more of a reason to want to rotate.
exactly. So then when I'm on cooldown with one, I could probably rotate through all these gotchis, and then maybe by the time I'm done getting through all of them, my first guy, he's ready to go again. Like, it's I don't know.
Yeah, and
That's
because
good.
there's so much unknown, that goes back to the point that we were making of like, all right, well, they know. At least I hope they know, or they have an idea, right? So it's like, what are we steering the game for? We're just like blind with a blindfold on.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And like, and like for rotating wearables too, it'd be fun. Like, not everyone has every piece of these sets, so they'll be involved in some you'll be channeling with, like, for the common wearables there might be more, but then maybe with the legendary ones there might be a few guys in a circle. We're still getting a little bit of a yield, but all that yield is just going to basically evaporate if we allow an outsourced Insignia that someone can just mint and like just place on 1,000 gotchis. It's just, I don't see in what world naked gotchi should have any chance to communal channel at a higher rate than a gotchi that's wearing wearables, which an owner made investment into the game, and that investment stays in the game. Like, it goes to the DAO, it goes to the player rewards, it goes to everything.
And I think the
So why are we
strongest
taking
the strongest point you have, I feel like, in my opinion, is that it's this communal versus just regular channeling. Like, you can go channel your naked gotchi if you want. Like, and you can go do that and then go rotate, and then, like, at least that's going to be like some kind of like limiter, right? Because, like, how annoying is it going to be to like switch like over 1,000 gotchis and do individual channeling? So like I think it communal could be exclusive, should be exclusive even. I like that mechanic.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's why people have hundreds of naked gotchis, is just purely for the kinship farm alone. But now you're going to give them their communal channel as well, along with the alchemical channel. They shouldn't be getting both.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that 100%. And let's not forget, like, the whole reason I feel they've even created this communal channeling aspect is that you'll be able to spend time with your guildies, with your mates, and like you'll be able to create events around it, and it'll give you a reason to actually meet up in the realm and like spend time doing stuff. So like that's a big deal if you've invested some money into buying a wearable so you could hang out with your guildies and like all be representative of this one group, right? And you're all going to channel, and maybe I know there's multiple levels to the lodge, so maybe between the levels that would allow you to have more gotchis in there. And so that would be how you'd be able to expand your channeling. But that has a lot of work and effort involved. So that'll give, people a reason to invest that time and effort into something so they can get better channeling rewards, so they can hang out with more of their guildies, right? And then that'll increase the demand for like the guild wearables. So maybe the guild will have like rental programs within their guild for their wearable. It'll just create other markets inside, right? And then I've had this idea of like, let's have a guild insignia, but let's have that only have value intrinsically within the guild. Like maybe this guild insignia is attached to like being able to rent one of the guild gotchis for like a day or two, like a bond, right? So if you have this wearable equipped and it's a guild wearable, maybe there's some smart contract work that has to be done there, but if someone's able to create that and have this wearable functional inside the guild, I could see value there for like guild wearables. But I don't think guild wearables should be able to have an effect on the general overall gameplay. I feel like that's going to mess with too many of the mechanics that the team has probably a lot of thought into.
And you guys bring up like what a deep argument, like not argument, but what a deep thing we're going through, right? It's not exactly simple to understand what we're saying, and it's especially not simple for new players. It's not even simple for people that have been here for a month, maybe deployed 50 grand to the game. That's kind of like how I'm seeing it, and it's like there's like a lot of really subtle complexity to this game, and it came from somewhere. Like, I want to know, like, who is the mastermind? Because there is like, maybe it's Coder Dan, it's probably Jesse, maybe it's somebody else. It's like, part of their team that like had this vision, but this is somebody's world that they had in their head. And like, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm not trying to Like, screw with that idea. So if their intentions is to bring demand on wearables and make communal channeling this exclusive thing, like, I'd like to know. And it makes sense. And like, till this, and I don't consider myself ignorant, and I spent a shit ton of time on Aavegtochi. Till this conversation, I didn't really understand it fully. So it's like, what are we doing? Like, we're going to ruin a good thing. Like, that's where I'm at with this right now. It's like, I'm just like, please, let's push the game out, like, to give some people something to do, please.
Yeah, and to your point that like it's really complex and amazing in its like diversity of ways of earning, for example, and then like, well, the technical execution and then the integration of DeFi. I mean, this is the biggest brain project in crypto, in crypto gaming at least, in NFT games.
Yes, not understood by many, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Like 100.
And the risk actually of the bottleneck that I have been thinking of myself is not so much like if we, the people on this call, or the people who are active in the community, if we're gonna have a good time, or if we're gonna continue making Ghost or whatever. I think that's somewhat of a inevitable scenario that it will continue to go well for us, but I think that it's gonna be a challenge to get people involved, because the rarity farming, for example, is quite unattainable for, if you just think of like a regular consumer who would now go out and buy a Gotchi, and like people who are not in the game yet, it's kind of daunting how complex it is. Unless you have like quite strong conviction, you may not ever reach the point where you actually care if you can harvest communally with your wearable, or if you can buy it off of OpenSea or whatever, that like, that I hope that when the game comes out, there's also a natural and maybe advantageous, maybe even like little like incentivized way for people who have no stake in the ecosystem yet to be able to enter it, Because
Yeah, I
otherwise
mean,
we're
like
just
the liquidators,
like
we don't speak
buying
enough
each
about
other's
it.
bags here.
Yeah, you have the liquidators, right? And like, didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize, right? But like, ultimately, and I think that we're in these deep conversations, we always forget about that side of the whole game too. And it's like, everybody's like, oh no, everybody should be able to come in, and like, it's too expensive for Gotchi. Well, there's a free to play model, like that, where you can literally make money playing for free with like a single one-time use NFT, right? And like, I think that that's like something really important to think about. And Brills, and to kind of tie that back to what we were saying, it's like you laid out all the different ways to earn. Communal channeling is one way to earn, one of at least very clearly 3, but potentially 4, 5, 6, 7, with all this whole aspect of like your ability to contribute to the game without even playing it by building. So it's like, the way you laid out the earning, like it made it very clear that they are caring about everybody making Alchemica in some way or another. But it doesn't mean that every single one of those ways has to be completely equitable. Because then how are you rewarding hardcore players and like people that have made bigger investments or taken the time and are putting in the time, etc. So I think that was masterfully laid out in context, right? Because if you just say, oh, like, let's forget about everything else and then focus on like, oh, communal channeling and look how out of reach it is for everybody, like in a vacuum, yeah, I mean, that seems really unfair. But when you realize it's just like one of 4 ways, and just it's accessible, just a little bit harder, but it has its benefits, right? So yeah, and Gotchigang, I think the liquidators will be the way, because like, how fun is it? Like, oh, you can't afford this game, but you can go attack these people that can afford the game and steal their money. I mean, it's a nice story,
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I don't think about the liquidators often myself. It's only when they creep into the nightmares that I have to think about them.
Lately, we've been so engrossed that they're not even in my mind. And like, every once in a while, I have to like remind myself, like, oh, there's this whole other mechanic that they're thinking of to bring in like outsiders, and it will maybe scale differently and like be approachable in a different way, where like Aavegtochi and being a ghost in the realm and all this, being an Aavegtochi is all this complexity, but it's dead simple, like 3 steps to become a liquidator and get playing right away, right? That I think that would be a good way to approach that probably.
Yeah, things in the Citadel, I'd imagine, are still going to be relatively civil to like the grid gameplay. Like feelings are going to get hurt. Like if we haven't we haven't seen anything yet, with people. Like the thing is, like with normal games, I get pretty sucked into it. I get emotional. I get fired up sometimes, like. And this is like not only that, but this is an actual game where money's on the line, right? Even if it's like a bunch of Alchemica tokens that might not be worth like thousands, that's your bag of Alchemica that you worked hard on. You channeled with your homies. You farmed your land. You did all this stuff. You invested this time, and it's actually represented with these tokens. And someone like, just like mugging you in the grid and taking your bag of Alchemica tokens is A, not only going to be hilarious for people that, that are not you, and B, will also just be really exciting and like emotionally activating for that person. But like, you can't let that get in the way of like the overall gameplay. It's just going to be a give and take. Like, not everyone's like, you can't be selfish in the game and be like, all the moves have to be in my favor. Otherwise, I'm going to vote no and it doesn't work out. Like sometimes, it's okay to give a little bit up. And we did this, we had a similar conversation around Haunt 2 is like everybody who voted for Haunt 2 knew that it would affect our bags because we had all bought Haunt 1 unopened portals or we had bought like H1 Gotchis. And we knew that the price would take a big hit after we released liquidity of H2. But then we also saw the opportunity of the value of getting that many more people engaged in the game because at that point in time, the biggest complaint about Aavegtochi was it's too expensive. And we decided to kind of open the doors a bit and give people a second chance to get in on a mint because the first mint was like sold out in a minute. So, we mitigated those feelings towards Aavegtochi by giving people another chance. And it did affect our bags for a bit, right? But in the end, we all came out ahead. Like I got some sick gotchis out of it. Like my overall bags are like, they're healthy. Like they're doing good.
So thankful that you decided to do the Haunt too. I love telling people who aren't in the Gotchiverse that like the DAO actually decided not to release more of them, even though the gaming studio wanted to make another Haunt. I think that's just like an amazing show of strength from like the relationship that the game studio was willing to take that sacrifice in a way, and the DAO was so bullish on the game. They said, no, we don't need to scale yet. We're having a great time. Let's just let's sit on this thing. It's great.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like the biggest thing we got here right now is our community and like our mindsets are relatively alike. Even like, talking to some people, I've made like some really good friendships because like I don't know people that think like I do or have certain opinions that I have or, just like look at a game like this and see the value of it right away. That already means we have a lot in common than what most people would think. And I think that's like I think that's the benefit of having a difficult, maybe not difficult, but relatively challenging learning curve initially is it weeds out all the people that aren't going to invest the time to really understand the game and then later on be able to actually like disseminate the information to people and get them onboarded. And like this is where guilds are going to play like a huge part in not only educating people, like there's multiple creators now that are, including myself, that I'm trying to push material out that guilds are doing. I'm trying to push like events out that guilds are doing because I really do feel a lot of these guilds, and especially the wearable guilds, are going to be what get people interested and onboarded, especially with communal channeling. I feel like these are really going to be core things, some of the things we talked about.
Yeah, and I've been thinking a lot about like what that's like, and it, and not to beat a dead horse at this point, but like, I'm curious to know like how they think about like what they take, and what they bring to the snapshot, right? And like because it's like I'm sure they made plenty of decisions where like they didn't ask, and some obviously were natural. Like I think I wasn't here for when you guys did the Haunt 2 vote, and I thank you for doing that because I was able to actually come and deploy and be a part of the community and put some serious capital to work in the game. Probably went a lot further thanks to you all, so thank you for that. But that one seems like kind of like makes sense to bring to the community. So like, I am curious. Maybe like one of these hangouts on the weekend, we can like kind of like, ask them like, hey, like how do you guys like decide at this point in time, and it's probably not even worth it because what I'm hoping their strategy is like, hey, by January, latest like, maybe early Feb, they got something solid that everybody's just engrossed in and just trying to make money and playing and whatnot. So some of the heat can come off of them. But like, I wonder like how they go about that and like how that's going to be going forward. And if only because I do hold, like people told me not to, but I'm sorry, I can't help myself but hold more weight on a SIG prop that comes from one of the game creators versus a random SIG prop that comes from like somebody that has like obviously probably some self-interest involved.
Yes. Yeah, 100% agree. And that's where things will have to get sorted out. Like, like you said, through Hangout or something where we can just see um, what's the vetting process for some of these proposals? Because I actually made a video about this a while ago. I pulled up a really old Medium article and it laid out really well the different phases of the DAO, and it laid out exactly how someone should vote and the team's ideas behind how to even get something to a SIG prop. And I put a video out on that, and I think things were okay for a little while, and now it seems like we get people putting up SIG props. So I mean, I think that issue it'll get solved over time. They have, just so you guys know, they have removed a lot of these proposals in the past, just being like, yeah, it like passed quorum or whatever, but like it's kind of dumb, and they just removed it, and that was it.
That's
So
good to know.
that is where, I mean, it's not an absolute thing if something passes quorum. If it had minimal conversation around it and there's a lot of disagreement among the higher team, like things like that have been removed before. They have removed proposals like that. So
Yeah, and like what I'd be asking for, and like this is like kind of back to my point where I started with like, well, I've been thinking a lot about new players and how I'm going to onboard people and how I'm going to get them involved and how I'm going to get them involved in the governance and which ones will care and which won't. I feel like, for some big stuff that's game design changing stuff, there should be enough time to like disseminate information to the community, to every crack of the community, because everybody's vote counts. And like, it shouldn't be an uneducated vote. It shouldn't be like a vote based on like, oh, like I saw this like argument really quick, like, and I saw people flaming each other like in the DAO discussion, and then like that changed my mind like from 1 second to the next. No, like if it's something big that has to do with like game design or the economy, like we should have a couple weeks to like, teach people, show people, like, like have conversations like we just had right now, right? Like maybe people are listening and like they understand it better now. And like, then there's this whole aspect of Aavegtochi being an international thing. There's going to be multiple currencies involved. I mean, I'm sorry, languages involved, not currencies. There's going to be people from all over the world. So then we need some time for some of these things to get translated and conveyed to these different international communities. So I think on like some of this big stuff, like they should probably extend like the time for voting. Like if it's a really big fundamental change, that it takes time for people to like digest the information and disseminate it.
this is where I think guilds are going to be a really big thing in getting this information out to these people. And someone new to Aavegtochi, I would say it's almost necessary to join a guild if you want to get like a steady stream of like information that's broken down for you in a way for you to understand. Because you could just jump into the Discord chat. I know like the mages and like Friend Zone, and there's quite a few actually now that are really active guilds, and there's always conversation going around there. And there's also, like you said, multiple people like from around the world in these chats. So you could always hop in, and there's usually someone active that'd be willing to help you out. I know I've had a few questions and they get cleared up, like in a couple minutes, but like you're not going to have that same access to that kind of information even at this point in like the general Aavegtochi chat. Like you could put something in there and there's a lot of random conversation that goes on in there now. It's not kind of what it used to be like 4 or 5 months ago. You might randomly get like Moon or like Bearded, or like there's some people in there that keep an eye on it that might answer your question, and you could know it was answered like accurately and intelligently. But like I would say for someone starting out, it's almost better to defer to a guild because they'll be able to get you involved in a lot of these discussions. You got Dr. Wagme?
That's a really good point. And I think it's good that we have like the guild infrastructure now too, like to help with that dissemination of information. You know, when I first got here, that wasn't really there. It was like my only place for like solid like info was like the Aavegtochi Discord, and then like I would randomly like DM people, you know, mostly about like how much is this Gotchi worth, like most people like, or how do I pick this Gotchi like in the early days. But I think it's really great now that there's guilds that will probably help like definitely get a fair and more involved vote overall, and more informed voters, more importantly.
Hey, Dr. Wagme.
Hey guys, sorry for being late. Had some Christmas stuff, but
It's all good.
just piggybacking on the conversation. You know, I think that we're all kind of hesitant about the idea of vote delegation, but we need to balance like how nimble and quick we are with how we are making sure to hear the voices of the community. And those are going to be two things that as we grow exponentially and as we get international involvement, we don't want to like slow down how fast we can react or change or, you know, adjust the meta. And so I'm curious if we're going to see a vote delegation system evolve as guilds evolve, and we can see a delegation of votes to your guilds and hope they're looking out for you. And I think people like me, I'm going to stay really involved, right? I don't want to delegate my vote to anyone, but a lot of people, it's too much to read, you know, walls of text on Discord or whatnot, and having someone that, you know, like has your values and delegating to them could be something that helps keep us nimble and able to reach quorum and still respect the voters.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Bros.
Well, no, I was just going to say, yeah, it's a great point. Like, I feel like sometimes people, you know, maybe don't read the full proposal before they vote. They just kind of look at the popular vote. And it reminds me of a phenomenon I actually just heard about this week called the Ash Conformity Experiments, where this Dr. Solomon Ash conducted some experiments and found that people were willing to ignore reality and give an incorrect answer in order to conform to the rest of the group. And basically, the experiment was measuring lines against each other. And I feel like the same thing could be said in some of these votes because people are just looking to, you know, make that XP, and they might not care. But there's ripple effects that come from these proposals. They just need to be thought through more thoroughly.
Well, or worse, they're just like conforming with like the loudest voices or like the people that have like the most weight in the community from like what they've seen, which like, listen, nobody's right about everything. Like there should be discourse and back and forth. Like the one thing that I've learned in cryptocurrency over the last decade is like kill your heroes straight up. They will disappoint you and you will disagree with them, and you should be thinking for yourself and independently and verifying things anyways, right? So like I get like the whole like it's easier and just to like come in and like, oh, what are like the top shots saying or the whales saying or this and that. But I think that's a slippery slope, and like it's super slippery right now. Even more so, in my opinion, when the game launches, there will be some ossification because if things work, people aren't going to want to change what works, right? But right now, we don't know what works. So everybody thinks that like their perspective is the best perspective. Like, so it's like, I hope that they just stop all like voting until they launch the game, unless it's something massively critical. Because like, I think that, and I'm not going to speak for them, but if I was like doing this and if I was in their awesome position where they're kicking butt, you know what I mean? Like, I would just be like, well, you know, I made, and the whole point of DAOs is like, it's not to design something per se. Like every DAO starts like whether it's like, you know, like the you know, the rebase tokens or whatever, like there's a clear intent, and like no one's like, you know, tweaking in the beginning before they like launch the protocol based on DAO votes, right? It's like, no, it's like, oh, we all join this, we know what it is, like we're in here, we get all the facts right. And I think we're in a dangerous time, and I, you know, I think that we need to move past this time. And I think the real fun for the DAO will be once the game is launched and we have like a beautiful like piece of clay to form together, right? Where right now I don't feel like that is possible. I feel like that just needs to be done by the people that designed this whole system.
I think that's where tomorrow is going to be a big deal because like I know we're not getting, from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we're getting access to the real Citadel map as it is designed. I think it's going to be more of a sandbox environment. but I hope we get a decent idea of like the scale of gameplay and also just like the communal aspect. Like I don't know what the mages are doing. Like are you guys showing up in all your insignia and all that? Like are there guilds like planning to show up like all decked out? Like that'd be pretty cool to see. Like that'd make for a sick photo too. Um,
I mean, you know, portal mages always rap.
Yeah, what else would they do?
I'll be wearing my wizard hat. Or mage hat, I should say.
I think it's going to be like the same screenshot that you saw like Dan posts where like they were just running around like collecting Alchemica. Like that seems to be their sandbox where they can place buildings, like installments, like just generate like a waterfall of Alchemica. Like, so I think it's just going to be like literally a pinata that everyone's just running around and just trying to collect Alchemica as fast as possible. And I think from my understanding is that the stress test is more about like everybody connecting to the game simultaneously and concurrent connections and like, hey, do we have to set up a queue? Like, you know, how are they going to because like even the best of the best games, like that's an ongoing problem, right? We've discussed that here in this spaces before about like, there's multiple things that they're trying to do here. And like, you know, game design and I'm sorry, game infrastructure design is like still something that's people are innovating every single day. But I think these 2D games are scaling pretty well. Like the phaser apps like seem to be doing like, you know, I know you were talking about some collision issues on Web3 and whatnot, but if that's the worst of the problems and it's really not like handling the simultaneous connections, because it looked like a lot of people. What is the most people you guys saw on like Web3 game like all at once on screen?
Oh,
They said 5,000 people attended their kind of virtual concert there yesterday.
That's crazy. That's really impressive. Like, and if that's the case, then that's really encouraging probably for like Aavegtochi.
For sure. And it sounds like I'm really looking forward to the stress test. I think it's more to simulate the great battle because they think when the Citadel comes out, we're going to be more spread out. So they really want to try and see how the game can handle with everyone in the same place. So that's going to be really cool to see how smooth we can have that experience.
oh, that's a good point actually that you make is there's going to be if they can adjust the size of the sandbox. I mean, they will adjust the size of the sandbox. They can kind of control the density of Aavegotchis that are going to be in this space. So, like you said, it'll really be a stress test, but it'll also make for like a really sick picture if some guilds can get coordinated in such a way that we can take some really good uh, snapshots of it. Because this is kind of like the Genesis Aavegotchi event. It does feel like a big deal in my mind. You know, just owning these parcels and having invested so much time with the kinship and the Aavegotchis and picking out certain wearables to look a certain way and finally kind of being able to flex that. Now, I don't know like how many specifics of our Aavegotchis we'll be able to see. Like I don't know if our actual stats will make any difference. I don't think they will, but it would be cool to see some of the utility of the actual Aavegotchis. That would be cool, but I don't think they're doing that.
Okay,
Yeah,
we're gonna
they
go
said
nuts if we can shoot.
They said specifically that wearable traits or wearables and like that kind of stuff isn't not going to be affecting the gameplay in the demo.
Oh man.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, it'll still be pretty cool, I think. And it'll give us a taste of the scale of things, which is, I think, the biggest thing I'm going to get to take away from it is just like, what does my Aavegotchi look like scaled on the map? And how much of the map can I really see when I'm like walking around? Because like that would be a pretty big deal too.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool just to get the feel of the game for the first time. Because the first time most of us used our Gotchis was in Web3, and it was just fun enough just seeing all the side views and just to interact with other players on their other Gotchis. It was just a fun experience, so I'm really looking forward to tomorrow.
I get a kick
Oh,
out of the
so-
mini games. Like even the mini games get me excited. Like when I see my Gotchi like floating around in like a 2D environment, like doing something. So this should be a lot of fun.
It's funny, my girlfriend's been asking like, so what do you actually do? You say you play the Aavegtochi game. What is that? And for now, I'm just like, yeah, I'm just on this website. I'm going back and forth, and it's like that's not a game. That's that's eBay for pixels. And I was like, no, it's a game. But this for the first time now, actual gameplay. Can't wait to screen record some amazingness.
Yeah, no, like I think it'll be fun. Um, I'm gonna be trying to put on a few different wearables because I haven't really looked at all the side views of all my wearables. I own like a whole bunch of different like just a bunch of uncommons and commons, and I've just seen for the most part the 2D representation of them. But it'll be interesting to see. Like I might just like cycle through all my Aavegotchis, and I think it's a good idea to cycle through all your Aavegotchis if you can, because you might there might be something down the line. They've hinted at like maybe a badge or something. So if that's going to be per Aavegotchi, you might want to get each Aavegotchi involved in some gameplay. But I'm also going to be adjusting some of my wearables to see like kind of what they look like in the realm too. I'm just looking forward to seeing just like the visual representation of it from like
Ooh,
the
that
side
begs,
views and
that,
that.
that begs an interesting question. Like, I wonder if like their comm system will be based on address or by like Aavegotchi. I would think probably by address because like ultimately like you should still be able to identify somebody after they swap their gotchis.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. And I think from a lending and renting perspective, they would need to keep account of like the wallets, and that way they can keep tally of like I'd imagine which Aavegotchis are out and which ones are still in the wallet. But it's really interesting how they have the game set up. Like I think Dan was talking about how it's actually multiple servers from around the world that are all like syncing up to one instance. So I'd imagine like that's probably not easy to do. So we'll see like how smooth it actually turns out to be.
Yeah, I think that if they pull this off, man, like it's gonna be so fun to, and they're pretty like open about it. So I'm looking forward to like them letting us like peek behind the curtain, because it's from the blockchain side to like mating that with like an actual game and like having like, this persistent environment syncing up to the blockchain constantly, right? Like it's something that I've never seen done. And like that really gets me so excited just to even be an observer and a participant.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. Did any of you guys participate in the recent Guild Wars? And
Yeah,
how did that go?
it was really fun this morning. It was my second time playing Fall Guys. Actually, I was doing a little bit of practicing last night, but the Lost Mustachios, they did really well. They won most of the games. Moon Gotchi and another player there quite good at the game. It's really fun for me though because I actually surprised myself the first round and almost won the first round altogether. I just missed grabbing the crown, so that was unfortunate, but really fun regardless. And those events are always fun. It's really cool how CISA funds those events too with the pet operator because I thought that was the one thing that I wasn't really down for with the pet operator was that I thought there might be value leaving the ecosystem, but the fact that CISA's keeping that just because he earns friends and he buys tickets, it's not a big deal. It's not much, but like he actually just puts it all back into these guild wars right now. So I think that's just super honorable from CISA, and it's pretty cool. I just recently signed up for his service. I was manual petting for a long time, but it's kind of like I was just moving down the kinship leaderboards as much as I would try to be right on the dot, and you can never beat the bots. So unfortunately, and the other weekend, like just on the weekend, I was feeling pretty sick. I basically couldn't even look at the computer for a day. So in those situations, it keeps me from falling too behind now. So yeah, it was a really fun Guild War event though. I'm looking forward to the next one. Fall Guys is an interesting game for sure.
And I think maybe like seeing this Fall Guys gameplay, I participated in the last one, and it was a lot of fun. And I think Moon got you on last time too. But I think seeing someone take some inspiration from Fall Guys and make like an Aavegotchi version would be dope. Like so incredible.
Yeah, like some kind of sort of platformer battle royale. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, and you could probably use some of the in-game assets too. Like you have the Royal Crown, and you would just basically create um, like a 2D obstacle course to get to this thing, and then like I feel like it'd be a really good mini game.
It's gonna be cool because like there's been a lot of things that started in like Minecraft, for example. Like I think the whole idea behind like the Fortnite or the Battle Royale like thing was like originally like a Minecraft mini game. So we might have like mini games that people just build out of dApps on their parcels or whatever that end up just being cool concepts that you can really ride with, and it just might be a whole new game experience like within the game. So I'm really looking forward to see what the community can come up with.
Yeah, like I'm currently kind of working on my skill set as like a programmer because I do eventually want to be more involved with that side of things in the Gotchiverse with designing dApps and smart contracts. So like I'm really excited about this. I think the biggest challenge right now for developing games right now is not being able to handle more than one player, right? Because everything's just like client side and once you have that ability to actually have multiple players in a single game and that competitive aspect is there, you're going to see a lot of those games get really popular. Like I have a few game ideas that I'm like, they'd be fun games, but not with just like one Aavegtochi. You'd have to have some competitors to like make it actually like really fun.
For sure, for sure. I think I'm gonna hop off for now, but it was really fun joining you guys. Obviously, Gotchi is like the best community in the game, so looking forward to going along the ride with all you guys, and it'll be fun. I'll definitely try and hop on these spaces more, maybe talk a bit more. I really like listening, but it's fun to hop on sometimes and join the discussion.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. And like,
Yeah,
see
and-
you in 12 hours.
Yeah.
Have a good night, bro.
See you guys there.
Yeah. I'll
Yeah.
hop off too. Cool. Bye.
All right. Yeah, later, friends.
I'm
And I was gonna
listen a bit.
say-
I'm not heading out just yet.
Okay, yeah. No, I was gonna say if like you ever have anything for the portal mages, you can always come up here and show your events or whatever, get the word out. Because I think that's one way guilds can get people more involved as well, is just by hopping on these like public spaces and getting the word out, and that might spark some initial interest. Like especially with the lending and renting aspect, I know there's going to be two types of people. There's going to be people renting to guilds, so they have a reserve of Aavegtochis, and then there's going to be people that rent out to individual people. But I think these on-chain metrics are going to be really important for deciding factor of, am I going to rent to this guild, that guild, or am I going to just come up with my own kind of lending and renting program? Like for me, for example, I have 5 Aavegtochis, and I know at least 1 or 2 of them I'm going to use for my own gameplay. But then with the other 3, I'm thinking I'm actually going to be using those initially in the first couple months to lend out to friends and family. That's my initial goal, is to actually onboard everybody locally in my life that I feel I can onboard through just lending these Aavegtochis to them and letting that word of mouth kind of spread. And then maybe later on, I might find a guild that I find has a valuable proposition for lending and do that way, rather than having them sit idly. But I think that's going to be a big decision for a lot of people. How are you guys thinking about your lending and renting plans?
Well, I love this topic. A lot. So I have a lot of gotchis, right? So I have 150 and then I have 300 parcels. So I need help. And what I'm interested in is how am I going to be able to like pair those together? So I need help from a guild to like do that. So am I going to like be able to assign like 2 parcels per gotchi? And so like this partnership with a guild, like when you rent out this gotchi, do you know that you have these 2 pieces of land that you can farm on? Or do I give access to all my land to all my gotchis and they can all just like collect the service alchemica? Or can the guild like figure out ways to be like most productive with it and I can just let them figure out how to be productive? And then like how do I get paid for all of that? Do I need to charge the guilds more? So it's going to be a really complicated rollout. And it's going to be fun to watch that lending system evolve.
Yeah, I totally agree. As far as having that much land, it's definitely something to think about because like your yields could be drastically affected based on who you're lending out to. Because I mean, from that perspective, when you have such a large scale, you want to make sure that it's profitable, right? Because it's all at that point, it's kind of a return on investment deal where you want to make sure that every Aavegtochi you're lending out, and all the land that you're renting out is being utilized to the max as much as possible. Whereas for me, my personal goal is actually I might not make that much yield, and I don't have that many Aavegtochis to harvest a significant yield initially. But my plan is to use these Aavegtochis to help onboard people into the game, either locally or over time, just renting them out to certain guilds maybe. So I think there's kind of two different interesting ways to look at it.
Yeah, I think there'll be people that are just really good at herding players, and then naturally there's people that made wise decisions and bought gotchis early on, or continue to buy gotchis even now. So I think that it's really smart, going the B2B aspect, like Dr. Wagme was suggesting, right? Because you may make less, but it's a lot less work, and it is a lot of work to manage in a community. Like even for ourselves and our guild, like personally, like Master Yang and myself have about 150 gotchis. Not all that will be going to the guild. So it's like I'm going to be trying to kind of figure out what works best. Like, and I'm going to try to live in both worlds where, I'm like renting gotchis through our guild and, having everybody kind of like enjoy that and be a part of that through membership and things of that nature. But then also trying some like more diverse strategies like on my own. And I think that it'll come down to kind of how we were talking earlier, before Dr. Wagner got in here about like how good the UI or UX, this Uber experience that they're promising is going to be, and how well the reputation system or whatever kind of reputation system they design around being able to transparently see like, how well a player plays or doesn't, or just even, it doesn't necessarily, because, it's not always going to be about like the best performing player, but even just people that are, honest and have communication skills. Like, hey, something happened in someone's life that they can't play your gotchi like hardcore. Like, this is not a sweatshop. You know what I mean? Like, that's not, at least that's not what I'm going for, right? So just being able to find those right players, right, the two ways are either a guild or this interface. So depending on how good this interface is will kind of play off like whether or not how good it will be to rent to guilds and whatnot. Because if this interface is really good, then guilds will probably have to have other value propositions so that, Dr. Wagner just won't go to this interface and just run all his gotchis through this like really great interface that allows him to scale, right? So we've been thinking a lot about like how to, make value added things in our guild to kind of like, attract players and the best players. But if we can't do that, then naturally, like, I think that, having alliances with other guilds and then relying on the interface, I think everybody will have lots of options and it'll be just fine.
Yeah, I was just about to leave, but sorry, Wagme, I'm going to interrupt you there.
No, go for it.
Yeah, no, I was just supposed to leave, but then you brought up a good question there, Hefe. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to how this whole renting, lending thing will play out. It's going to be interesting to see like the demand from like just the on-chain itself, just putting your gotchis, I guess, on that renting market, and then compared to you trying to go find someone to use your gotchi that might work out a little bit better in some scenarios. For me, since I have a lot of time on my hands at the current moment, basically full-time crypto gotchi, whatever you want to call it for the time being, I'm looking to put my time to use. So I've been exploring these telegrams and it's these scholarship programs, and basically people are applying for like a job and they're putting a lot of effort into these like long write-ups to rent axes. So there's obviously a huge demand for people that like, and in their write-ups they even say that they might not have played Axie, but they've watched a friend play Axie and they just really want to get into it. So I'm looking, and they seem to speak English for the most part. So I'm basically going to be targeting like those players if I like as much as I can, just to try and build them into like bring them into the guild and use gotchis and whatnot and land that like our guild owns, or because I have enough gotchis myself to try and rent out, so I might as well just put in that extra effort and see if I can bring enough value to, or bring enough players to for the, like I could really talk at this point, but I hope you guys kind of get what I'm saying. What was my point? I was tripping up there. Yeah, like I just want to bring these players that are looking for a job, essentially. Like we might need those players to rent our gotchi, so I'll let them know like that the opportunity is there, And we plan on, sorry, what I was going to bring up is that we plan on maybe building like a Telegram group that's separate from like our guild where like we're all hanging out, because these might be like more foreign players just in the job aspect of it. Like we're probably going to add like different language specific channel or something. Like we just want to help those players basically onboard them into the Gotchiverse. That's essentially what I'm trying to get at here. So sorry, it's been a long night.
Yeah, no, I love what you have to say. And it's pretty clear to me after meeting with CGU and I met with Blackpool, like there are thousands and thousands of players like ready to play to earn gaming, like in any sense. And I really think if our product is halfway decent at all, we'll have thousands of people like ready to play these gotchis. So it'll be fun. Like there'll be like this farming aspect, just like making sure your gotchi's rented out most of the time. And then there'll be like the competitive side, because I'm really hoping we'll see cool leaderboards for like the most productive gotchis or the most surface Alchemica collected. And we're going to see groups or guilds try to snag those top leaderboard spots. And I think that could be the guild, but I think like these big guilds like CGU are going to be good at making most of your gotchis productive. But I'm really excited for the OG Gotchigang to like hopefully still hold on to those top leaderboards, and that it won't just be like some like crazy string of farmers out of Venezuela that put us all to shame. And I'm excited for both aspects of that game, and that's what's going to make this so much fun, is there's something for everybody, whether you're trying to like make a living or you're trying to rock the leaderboard by playing 24/7.
Doctor, can I ask you a question? So I remember like 3 or 4 spaces ago, like you mentioned that like 4 ghosts a day was kind of where you were calculating. That would be for your portion. So like, do you see kind of like in your, some of your numbers or your theory crafting, like a player potentially making $20, $30 USD a day? Like, do you see it lining up that way?
Yeah, I think that's where I see it. I think there'll be around $20 a day to earn, and then that's going to need to be split between the player, the Gotchi owner, and then the guild, if you're using a guild to go through. And it's possible that that cap is higher initially because we have artificial scarcity of Gotchis, so the total value might be more versus the diluted markets for Axie. But when I'm doing my estimations for like what my price targets are for Gotchi acquisition, I'm trying to choose that conservative number of the diluted Axie market of that $20 a day, hoping that it's like double that, right? But I think one of the interesting ways to think about what Alchemica is going to be worth is it like really is probably going to be, it's like half proof of stake, half proof of work. And the work is going to be people playing the game 24/7. So I think you can kind of map out what Alchemica might be worth and that 24/7 farming earnings that people have gotten from Axie or what I'm using to get to that $20 a day.
Yeah, I feel like, do you think that like maybe like Jesse and Dan would like be targeting that? I think that has to be in their back of their mind, right? Like, hey, like an Axie, like we should make like as much as an Axie player. And, like that's what I'm hoping. And if they hit that, I think it'll be very successful.
Yeah, the beginning is going to be wild. What Alchemica's worth, like what are they going to put it worth in the pool? Like, is that pool going to just go absolutely fucking nuts when it opens? Like, I don't know. It's going to be crazy. And whatever they price it at is going to be very interesting to tease out and see if we think that's too expensive or too cheap. And then we'll see a huge spike in price right away.
Yeah, I really appreciate you putting that chart together, Wagme. It was really interesting to look through your projections. I think one thing too is people often think we'll be farming Alchemica and maybe turn that into Ghost. But at the beginning of the game, it might be the opposite almost. People are going to be maybe investing Ghost into Alchemica to kind of get the head start on all these Alchemica harvesters and things like that. So it'd be really cool to see like the market like kind of just do its thing at the beginning there.
Yeah, and I think for all of our sakes, we should hope to see the Alchemica prices erupt because like it's probably going to be like a slow bleed out once people have built everything, right? If you have nothing else to buy or to upgrade, you're just going to sell the Alchemica. So we really need to see a high price target reached for these pretty soon. So I'll be pretty dismayed if we don't see a big spike early on.
Well, and
Yeah,
let's not forget.
Sorry, Happy, go on.
I was just gonna say, just let's not forget that there's gonna be LP positions that are gonna be required too for probably keeping like the price of Alchemica like stable, right? And like you do like a Ghost Keck pair or something, and you'd be earning the Glamour token. So I wonder if that's gonna be implemented right away, because that would give people a head start on some of these LP positions to collect the Glamour token for use like later in the game when people are going to want to upgrade these structures. And for anyone who's played like Clash of Clans or Boom Beach or even I'm not completely sure on Minecraft, but the way the initial structure works is you can upgrade your installations really quickly at the start, but then it almost does an exponential thing where, you know, you get past level 4 or 5, and now to get to 6 is like all the alchemica that you used from going to 1 to 4. You know what I mean? And maybe there's a time aspect there too, where it might take like, let's say, a week or something to build this thing now compared to like 4 hours. So like in order to speed that up, you'll want to have these glamour tokens, especially if you have like some bigger things that you want to build, guild things, or you know, just for yourself even.
Yeah, it's gonna be so much fun. But what I gotta pop off, guys. But I'll see you guys all tomorrow morning. Can't wait.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, see you later. Good having you.
Take care, Wagme.
The meta is going to be really interesting to see unfold in the beginning. Because yeah, like it's going to be a strategy how you want to approach. Like if you want to just start with the harvester, if maybe the meta is upgraded to a certain degree, like it's all just going to be a trial and error, I guess, at the beginning, and then people are going to figure things out. But yeah, it's gonna be really.
Well, we were talking about too about the mad dash in the beginning too, because like it seems like they're just gonna let everybody have like a free for all, and like how important it's gonna be just to like have all the your gotchis in play no matter what, even if you're doing crazy splits. Like I'm even trying to find people in real life, like family and friends, like yo, like come this day, you know, like I don't know, maybe you'll make $50-$100 just messing around, you know, because like I want to have everybody in play like on the first day.
Yeah, it's gonna be huge. Because I feel like there's just gonna be such a demand for the Alchemica. It's gonna be the most at the start, I believe, because the whole map's gonna be empty. So from there, you know, the Alchemica prices may, you know, slowly taper off, but like the yield you're gonna be getting is still gonna be going on. It's just basically just with any LP pool, like a lot of times, or not any. I'll just cut that point, but a lot of times there's just a lot of supply at the beginning because people are trying to get the pool to farm token, and then that just kind of bleeds off. Like we saw with Dino Swap, kind of how that happened. People were really wanting to get that high APY with the Dino, but then it just runs its course. So we'll see how that works.
But I think the thing that will underpin some of that and maybe keep the price relatively stable is also the fact that, like you said, the Alchemica needs to be used to build structures, and also requires some sort of time and effort, like a proof of work aspect, to actually create these structures, right? So there's always going to be a demand for Alchemica.
Yeah, and there's going to be a strong demand. I'm not saying it's going to run a Dino Swap course at all. I just mean at the very beginning there's going to be a spike for sure, and then it's probably just going to level out after that to a degree until, yeah. But the cool thing is the Gotchiverse is always expanding, so we're going to be using all this Alchemica to build out like the Citadel maybe at first. Or is like the whole game, like I'm pretty sure when it goes live, we're only going to be in the Citadel. So there'll be a whole new like demand and all that when we get into the realm as well. So, or the greater grid, I guess you could say. So yeah, it's going to be cool. Really cool.
I mean, it'll be like our Alchemica will be a lot more secure in the Citadel where there won't be as much a give and take, but I'd imagine like the amount of resources a guild is going to have to expend for like security operations around their grid parcels is going to be huge. And that's where like your idea of recruiting from the Telegram is a really smart idea, because you're going to get these players that are like solely motivated to make money, because that's like a source of income for them. That's like their employment. And if you assign them a task such as, you know, you are like the defender of like these groups of parcels in this area of the grid, you can be sure that they'll probably, if they're like vetted fully through your guild, they'll be dedicated to like defending your parcels for you for whatever exchange, right? Whatever's arranged. But like those players are going to be dedicated to whatever needs to be done to just on an economic basis, right? So like that's a really smart idea of like going into telegrams of these guilds that use players or help players with employment.
Absolutely, because like right now in our guild, like we mainly have people that like own gotchis, so it's not like they're going to be really renting gotchis. So like out of the the 200 people we may have in our guild right now, we may have 1,000 gotchis ready to rent. So there's still like 800 gotchis we kind of are going to want rented. So like at the start, it's probably going to be through the on-chain lending, but if we can somehow make that more streamlined, bring people in directly to our guild, maybe through a website, or there's a number of ways we can do it. But I was even thinking, I don't want to give away all my ideas, no, just kidding, but just like, making a YouTube video, maybe in like a different language about like how to join this guild and just kind of show them the basics and really trying to onboard like just more players to the guild, to the Gotchiverse, just so everyone can get their items rented once they're rented. Everyone's happy because it seems like in Axie is like everyone's kind of happy. Like people are making more money than they could maybe at a real job or a job they wouldn't like, or like they're obviously doing it for a reason. So it's crazy to see how much demand that game had, like over 1 million players. It's just insane. So I'm pretty bullish on that we're going to be able to bring a lot of those players in. Axie's been around for a while. People might be getting bored of it. I just want Gotchi to almost vampire attack Axie in a way and bring some of those players over. So
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Like black hole, like, like 2 stars combining kind of thing. Like I'm just going to suck all the energy out of it.
I might make a tweet now. Axie walks so Gotchi could run.
That's a good one.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. It's going to be really fun. I'm excited. I've said it enough. But yeah, this time I'm actually going to head out. Really fun hanging with you guys tonight. But I'm gonna go for a walk or something. I'm in a really beautiful place right now, so I just want to enjoy the night. So.
Right
enjoy
on. Time, dude. Have a good night for sure. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys there too. Have a good one. Peace.
Yeah, have a good one. Thanks for joining.
I'm actually gonna take off too. It's a little longer than I expected to be on, but it was a great discussion.
Well, I was actually saying we're actually on our coming up on our 2 hours, so I think it'd be a great time to wrap up. If you actually have any announcements that you need to make, I think that's a good time right now to do that.
Yeah, I always plug 8-Bit Gamers Guild, 8bitgg.com. We also have a Discord, so I'll be opening some portals this week if you want to, enjoy that and, by proxy and kind of seeing if we get something good. We're still getting organized, like, I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I'm trying to go a little bit overboard with like how we handle memberships and stuff. But since the holidays are here and some of our members that are developers are out of town and whatnot, we may over the next week or so, people are showing interest, just take manual enrollment. But, being a part of our guild will give you access to gotchis, access to lands. We have a petting service that we already built. Plan to work that into the first revenue producing kind of DApp that the guild owns. And we have a lot of cool ideas that, are very much in flight, but they're not executed yet. So you can come along and be a part of it. I build out in the open. You can ask Kefe. I'm in the main chat asking people for their opinions, saying, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. There's really no secrets. So come on through and join the disc.
Yeah, man, that's fantastic. And for me personally, I just put these up on Aavegtochi Pacific chapter. That's my YouTube channel. You know my Twitter. You can follow me. And I mainly try and cover all the Gotchi mini games, and I host these spaces. And I get so many good conversations out of this, and I've learned so much through a lot of you guys as well. So I want to thank everyone here that came out tonight, and also invite everybody here. If you ever want to come up on stage and just chat or share some of the things your guild might be doing, your visions for the Gotchiverse. I'm just grateful that we actually have a space like this where we can have conversations like this. So yeah, on that note, yeah, if there's anything else you got to say.
No, man, I'll say thank you for hosting as usual.
All right. Yeah. Well, on that note, you could always join us next week, 7 p.m. Eastern, same time, same place. And we'll see you again next week. Or tomorrow. Or we'll see you tomorrow. Peace out, friends.